Hi, and welcome to LinkAsia. I'm Thuy Vu. A dangerous collision in disputed waters of the South China Sea. A Vietnamese fishing boat was in a crash with a Chinese vessel around an oil rig that's the site of a month-long standoff. The boat sank, but the Vietnamese crew was rescued. Each side blames the other for causing the collision. Dozens of Vietnamese and Chinese Coast Guard and other vessels are swarming around the Chinese-owned rig. Both sides accuse each other of trespassing and reckless behavior. Here's Vietnam state-controlled broadcaster VTV4.
A Vietnamese patrol boat detected 3 Chinese vessels assaulting Vietnam fishery control boat KN630 using water cannons. For 20 minutes, 2 Chinese vessels steered close to the port and stern of the Vietnamese boat, affecting the latter's course, while the remaining Chinese vessel attacked with high-pressure water cannons. KN630 is the same boat that was heavily damaged a few days back by Chinese forces. During that attack, 3 crew members were injured. On Wednesday, Vietnamese patrol boats counted a total of 62 Chinese vessels circling the Haiyang Shuyou 981 oil rig.
The Vietnamese fishing boat that sank is known by its registration number, DNA 9152. Its home port is Da Nang in central Vietnam. VTV4 says local fishermen say they are undeterred by the standoff with China.
At Tho Quang Fishing Dock, Da Nang, fishermen are set on the task. Information on the sunk ship hasn't shaken them at all.
We are angered but not worried. With the fishery control protecting the seas, we still go to work as normal, protecting our seas. Supporting our fishermen is our task, responsibility, and primary function. We will increase our forces to stand side by side with the fishermen in the protection of our sovereignty.
Together with the protection of the authorities, these days, messages of solidarity and togetherness from the nation are being sent to resilient fishermen who spend days and nights at sea.
David Brown is a former U.S. diplomat with broad experience in Southeast Asia. Now he's a commentator on Vietnamese affairs. He joins us on Skype. Hi, David.
Hi, thank you for inviting me to join you today.
Well, nice to have you with us. This standoff has been going on for about a month. It's brought relations between Vietnam and China to a low point, not seen for decades. What are Vietnam's options?
China has been highly and deliberately provocative. I think Beijing would be pleased if the Vietnamese were to attack its drilling rig and the concentration of Chinese ships that surround it. But wisely, Hanoi is not going to do that. For the next few months, they'll protest China's trespassing in their economic zone until the Chinese pull the oil rig back to avoid the typhoon season. Basically, on principle, the Vietnamese won't yield an inch. It looks as though they're going to sue China at the International Court of Justice, where they have a very good case.
So, David, was there anything in President Obama's foreign policy speech on Wednesday that might give either China or Vietnam a pause in this standoff?
To tell the truth, I was quite surprised that he hardly touched on East Asia. And what he said was basically old stuff. There was nothing new there, just routine repetition of the American commitment to the freedom of navigation on the high seas.
I wonder how much of that might have to do with the debate in the U.S. and in Asia now. On one side, those who say China is just doing what every emerging power does and it should be accommodated. And then you have the other side that's saying the U.S. must lead China's neighbors into stopping China's expansion into places like the South China Sea. Where do you stand on all this?
That is a tough question. I very much doubt that the 7th Fleet is going to sail into the middle of the confrontation. And is the ASEAN group going to do more than express serious concern? Probably not. And yet, I can't help thinking that this incident with the deep water drilling rig could change the strategic environment quite a bit. Up until now, for the last 5 or 6 years, China's been nibbling its way steadily south, but a number of countries with important interests in the South China Sea area, Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore especially, haven't seen China as a near-at-hand sort of threat. That's changing. And Japan is engaging too. So, in short, if there's a swell of activity in the region that's aimed at pushing back vigorously, then I think that would establish a basis for a more substantial American support of our friends in the region. And that would be, in my view, a good thing.
David, there's a modern Vietnamese saying. It goes something like this: to save the nation, follow the U.S. To save the party, follow China. Is this a dilemma that the Vietnamese government finds itself in? It can't afford to alienate China for commercial and political reasons, obviously. But at the same time, it can't be seen as kowtowing to Beijing either without risking social unrest.
Well, that's a phrase that one hears all the time in Vietnam. You know, the country has a long and very proud tradition of wearing down invaders, something that we Americans ourselves learned. And instinctively, the public wants to hit back. And dissidents criticize the regime as being wimps because they don't hit back. The main current of opinion within the party has held that by being deferential, by being non-confrontational, they could maintain a reasonable and constructive relationship with the comrades from the North. But that's looking increasingly problematic.
Yeah, well, obviously a very delicate diplomatic dance. Thanks so much for joining us.
It was my pleasure.
Former American diplomat David Brown is a freelance journalist. He writes about Vietnam for a number of publications, including Yale University's Yale Global and the Asia Sentinel. You can learn more about him on our experts page.
Now on U.S. airwaves, a global channel of uncompromising stories. World news, documentaries, entertainment, and culture. Link TV, connecting you to the world. For more information, visit linktv.org.